And we want to welcome everyone to King James Bible University Precept Mastery for the book of Romans. So we're going to be going through this in 1 second, and I'm just setting this actually up to where we can get ready to go with it. And let me see, do we have quite a few, we have 7 participants in the back. Let me set you guys up to where we can start going through, because we have quite a bit of stuff to go through. So we're going to be going through that, and we're going to be looking at anything. We're going to be going through. So we need to make sure we have a couple of things ready. And what I want to make sure that you have your Romans book, because we're going to be doing a lot of stuff in there. And actually, the ones who had a preceptual paper that's in the book, we're going to be using that. But if you have the digital preceptor, I want you to use that, because we're going to be going through quite a bit of stuff. So I want to make sure that we don't have any questions before we actually kick up about anything that was needed, or any questions about what was going on with Romans. So that's what I'm trying to make sure of. So do we have any questions? And basically, I'm not going to check on the YouTube side, but I'm looking at everyone who's in the back. Do everybody have everything they needed to and provide, and what was provided to where we're going to be going through the book? Because we're getting ready to start up, and let me move this down. And we have Elder Smith. And Elder Smith, how you doing? How you doing, sir?
Shalom, Elder. How you doing? Just wanted to make sure my name came up this time instead of the other thing.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to know.
It's showing directly what it is. I see Elder Smith right there.
All right. Shalom, Elder. Thank you.
Yeah, all right. Shalom, my brother. Yeah. So let's go through. And now what we're going to do, we're going to start going through a few things. And what we want to look at before we get into it, even though we went through the book of Romans, just the first chapter, what we have to do, which, the preceptual paper wasn't there just to look good. It wasn't there for that reason. We have to go back and overlook what we went through. And what we're getting ready to do now is get the total understanding as a whole for that chapter. What was Paul's main point? We have to figure that out. And the only way to figure it out, we have to go back over it. But this is the way that you literally understand the Bible, because most of us will just read through it, get it, okay, yeah, and keep moving. No, we don't do that here. We're going to read through it. Once you get it, in a good thing to do, sometimes you might read a chapter, walk on it for a day, chew on it, think about it, think about what was the main points he was speaking about. These are things you do. So what I want to do is we went through chapter 1, but what I want to ask with anybody, they can actually post them if you want to post them in the question and answers. You can post it there and tell me what was the main point in chapter 1. And the same thing I'm saying for the YouTube side. If you can post to me what was the main point of chapter 1. So we want to see what that was. And the only way we can find out, we have to participate to understand, to see what was the main focus, what was the main point Paul was making. And then we're going to go into the preceptor, and we're going to start getting a lot of stuff together. So I'm waiting to see, and people in the back in the classroom, I can see it immediately, and we can talk, right over each other. And then on the YouTube side, I know you guys have a slight delay, but I do want to know what was the main point and the main focus of what Paul was saying in chapter 1. So currently right now, I have nothing posted. on either side. But we're going to find out what was the main focus, what was the main point. And as we do this, these are things that you'll learn to which you'll always have with you. Once you have this tool in your arsenal, you'll never forget it. You'll always know what to do. And it's not just according to this scriptures here. This according to anywhere you're going in the Bible. And beautiful. And it's in the basic. We must keep the law. Okay, that's a good one. And we're gonna look at Paul. And it's saying having faith and keeping the commandments. Okay. These excuse me, this is what we have over on the YouTube side. Excuse me. So we want to find out what was the basics. So currently right now we only have 2 people answered. And right now that's about all we have going. And I want at least one more answer, just one more answer before we dive into this. Just one more answer before we dive into it. And knowing the understanding Christ. Okay, good. So what we're going to do, we're going to focus. Now with this you use anywhere. And we're going to start understanding how to focus in on, after you read the chapter, how to focus in on what we need to be knowing anywhere in the Bible. We're going to use Paul. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch this out. I have one answer here, and it's concerning God's son Christ. That's a good point. And we get ready to find out exactly what was going on, because it's in that area. It's in the area. So we're going to go through it. So what I want to do, let me set this up, and I'm going to go down to Romans, and we're going to start finding out. And this you always keep. If you don't keep anything else part of this lesson to where you forget parts of it. And okay, so we have many people showing many different, the importance of keeping God's law. So we have many of these things where people coming up with, and if you notice what they're doing, they're coming up with good things. You got to remember this. So the answers are good. To separate ourselves. So we have those answers. So we're going to find out exactly what we need to do. And anytime you go through text, I'm going to show you how sometimes as we going through here, sometimes we're going to see how we have to focus on a chapter. Sometimes we got to focus on maybe 3 or 4 chapters. But you're going to see the basis, even on what I do, to where I focus in on to what we have to do to understand the overall picture on what is being told to you through the scriptures. This is what we're going to be doing. So this is what's going to help you out. And this is why I say here we got to do Bible study here. So let me put this up, and we're going to read it, and then we're going to start finding out, because might have some people still be putting up some verses. So what I'm doing here, let me get this out of the way. Actually, let me minimize. Actually, I cannot minimize it. It says you cannot minimize that. So I can't minimize it. So let's look at this for what it is. Now, this is Romans chapter 1. Now we're going to see here on what we have posted, and we have what people understand on what we're doing. Just like I said, all the questions, all the answers are good answers on what we focusing on. And what we're going to do is learn how to laser point and get what's going on. So let's go through it. It says, Paul. Let me see, can I put this thing on? Let me see, can I? And it won't let me do it. So, okay, we'll just go through it with this way. It says, Paul, a servant of Yahweh Messiah, called to be an apostle, separated unto the gospel. So this is one thing you can kind of look at, is this here, the gospel of God. So we know the gospel means a message. It don't mean good news. So let's not get that tripped up with people. But it's according to the gospel of God. So according to the message of God, which he had promised. It's a promise which he had promised afore by the prophets in the Holy Scriptures. So Paul told you what this whole focus was about. He's telling you right there, it's a promise. Because we're going to find out exactly why he said promise first. So now we're going to look at it. Verse 3, concerning his son, Yahushua, the Messiah, according, which is made of the seed of David, according to the flesh. A promise. Keep this in mind. Now, here go the part here. He says, and declared to be the Son of God with power. Now, I know some people going to go through, I know last week where we went through some stuff and we went through Moses, and I asked what was the Egyptian name, and people were still saying son of. That's not, I didn't put the Egyptian translation in there. So people will sit and put son of, and they say, well, my precept Bible is not saying, okay, because it's not Egyptian, it's a Hebrew. It's a Hebrew understanding that you get in there, not Egyptian. So when I ask specific questions, we have to give those specific answers, not give a roundabout. So those one we have to remember on that. And then when we go in here, we have to make sure when you hear the question, we want to answer back accordingly. Because if I ask you, what do it mean in Latin, and you look in there and say, well, it means son of, and you know you're getting a Hebrew understanding from there, it's still not answering my question. So it's saying he was declared to be the Son of God with power according to the Spirit of holiness by the resurrection from the dead. That's where's your key. It's right here, because he already said it up at the top. He said the promise. So how you look at this and how you not see, and you'll see in other precept Bibles we'll be putting out, is certain things we put in certain areas to where it continually makes you read and study, because most people are looking for all the affiliations to be in one area, and then they'd be somewhere else, and then some affiliation be somewhere else based on the explanation and based on the use of the word. So what word in here is based on the promise? It's declared, because when you look at it and you see it, and we're going to see some examples, I'm going to do some examples here. What we're going to do, we're going to look at it. It says, which he had promised before by the prophets in the Holy Scripture. Now, and promised to be the Son of God with power. He was promised to be the Son of God with power. This is what we know, according to the Spirit of holiness. So now we know he also with the Spirit of holiness by the resurrection from the dead. It tells us that. So we know it's based on a promise. So we got to see some of these promises and see what it's talking about in the promise. So one we're going to go to understand what was being said. We're going to go to Leviticus, and we're going to go to 23 to see this promise. We're going to see promises made. We're going to see, we got to go to verse 44 and to understand. And many times you're going to always see me run to the law, because we got to see what the foundation is. And it says, and Moses promised unto the children of Israel the feast of the Lord. So he went down and he told them many things. And then he promised something. Then he promised something right there. He promised the feast of the Lord. So he declared, he made that promise, the feast of the Lord. But let's not only look at that, we're going to look at another one to just make sure we're going to hone in on what that is and understand what he is saying. So we're going to drop down. We're going to go to verse 13, and then we're going to start putting some of this stuff in the preceptor. We're going to look at verse 13. And he declared unto his son, he declared unto his covenant. So he promised unto his covenant, which he commanded you to perform, even the 10 Commandments. You obey my voice, but then also this here too. You got these 10 Commandments, which is actually broken down into 2. So this is the way you see this, and this is the way it will always be understood. People will tell you, well, 20 years later, it's going to look at you different. No, it's once you know what it means, you know what it means. But we know this declared was based on a promise. That's why it's telling you in this way. It was declared, it was made known. It was a promise made. It was an openly, publicly made known promise that what was going on. Now we're going to see a couple of other things that is going on in actually in before I go forward, we have a couple of people. If you right now, when you just posting scripture, when you just posting stuff, if not, we're going to start removing those, because as we come in here, we're not looking for people just to talk as we're going through this. This is the main thing. So we don't need those just posting up. So please do not do that, because if not, they're going to end up removing you for doing that. Because all we're trying to do, we're trying to get the understandings and then move forward. But just posting as like you go to other sites and then as people talking, then you're just post. We don't do that here. You know, that's what I said. It's almost like being in a social gathering, far as just people just speaking their mind back and forth, to where we can never get anything done. And what we're trying to do is put in work to understand what verses is, not to sit there to put out a bunch of opinions, excuse me, based on what people feeling at that certain moment, just based on what's being said. That we're not doing that here. So please don't do that. Okay, now, so now with the declared unto his son the covenant. So he promised unto his son the covenant. So that's what he did. Now we got to see, and we're going to see another good promise. We're going to go in here. We're going to go to Psalms. We're going to go to 119. And we're going to look at 10 through 13. 10 through 13. It says, with my whole heart I sought thee. Oh, let me wander from thy commandments. Thy word have I hid in my heart, which that's what he had done, that I might not sin against thee. Blessed art thou, O Lord, talking about the knowledge that he has. Teach me thy statutes. He's letting you know. Now watch this. With my lips have I promised all the judgments of thy mouth. How do we know he did this? How do we know he did this? This is what went on. He's taking on the same thing when we see this. He says, and therefore, if you obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant. So that's what David is talking about. And then this is what it goes on. And all the people answered together and said, and they had to use their lips. All that the Lord has spoken, we will do. That's how we know he did that. This is what he's talking about. So these are things that we have to see and remember on what's going on. Now we have another one we're going to look at in 119. And we're going to drop down. We're going to go down to 25. We're going to go down to 25. And it says, my soul cleaveth unto the dust, quicken thou me according to thy word. And now he said, I have promised my ways, and thou hearest me, teach me thy statutes. So you see how he's constantly doing this in the promising on what he's talking about he's going to do. So when we sit there and we making a promise, we need to make sure what we're doing and holding to it, because the Most High is doing it. We have one more we're going to look at there. We're going to look there. We're going to go to Isaiah 43. And then we're going to go into the preceptor and start taking care of some of this. We're going to drop down to verse 10. And it says, ye are my witnesses, saith Yahweh, and my servant whom I have chosen. So he have chosen us, that ye may know and believe. So same thing like you said, based on the promise. Because if he promised you something, now are you going to believe it? That's what he's talking about. He's making this clear. This is where Paul pulling this stuff from. And we're gonna see how Paul just making everything click. So that ye may know and believe and understand that I am he. Based on what? Based on that promise. Before me, there was no God formed, neither there be after me. Before there, it says, I, even I am the Lord, and besides me, there is no Savior. He's telling you all these things. I have promised, telling you right there. I have promised and have saved. Did not he do that? He saved them, took them out of Egypt. Then he saved you from the darkness that we was in. He's telling you that he's saying everything that he's done. And I have showed, and there was no strange God among you. He's letting you know clear this. Now, therefore, ye are my witnesses, saith the Lord. It says that I am God. Ye before the days was I am he, and there is none that can deliver out of my hands. I will work in who shall let it. So he's telling you what's going on. Now watch, here go the kickers right here. Thus saith the Lord, your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel, for your sakes have I sent to Babylon and have brought down all their nobles and the Chaldeans whose cry is in the ships. It's telling you right there, right point blank. I am the Lord, the Holy One, the creator of Israel, your king. So he's telling you everything. We know everything. Why? Because Paul wrapped all that up in there. So when we go back to Paul, we see all what Paul talked about, which the promise was afforded by the prophets in the Holy Scripture. We just seen that. We just seen that with those prophets. And we seen this in Psalms, we seen it in Isaiah. And it have other places in there, but we won't want to fill up the thing to where it just convoluted. But then we said in promise to be the Son of God with power according to the Spirit of holiness from the resurrection of the dead. So these are things that happen. And you can see these things all through Scripture. So before we move forward and start putting it in the preceptor, I want to make sure that everybody was clear on that before we move forward and make sure everybody is good. So do we have any questions? Any question before we do the preceptor? And currently, I don't see any. I don't see any currently right now. And everybody is clear so far. Okay, so let's kick in. So I need everybody to turn to their preceptual paper, or if you have a precept, if you have a digital precept, I need you to go to your preceptor. So we're getting ready to kick this up. And we're going to get through this. So let's move forward and let's start putting this in. So let me move this in some. And why is this not? Let me view this in. I don't know why I don't want to move in. Zoom. Yeah. Oh, Control Y. I don't know why. No, I don't want it to fit. Let me move this in. And I don't want the zoom size. Let me see if that. 1 second. I needed to, because I want to make sure you guys can see it. That's what I'm trying to make sure of. And for some reason, it do not want to move in for some reason. But I'm seeing right there where you can see it, but I'm not sure if everybody can see it good. And I want to zoom in to a little bit more. Let me just go down to 200. Let me see. That's what I want. I don't know why it's forcing me to do it that way. But the first thing what we have up here, we have, you can, in your digital preceptors, you have who, what, where, why, when, and how. We have those there. So what I want you to do is what we got to do. He declared. So we want to understand what happened. We want to understand what was the first thing in the overview on chapter 1. It was based on what? What? And then a promise. So it was based on a promise. And actually, I can do what is a promise. Do it that way. A little bit simpler. So what we want to do now, we're going to start filling this in, and if you put that in the top of your paper, you'll see what you'll be doing there. So now what we're going to do, we're going to go to the first one. We're going to look at Leviticus. We're going to look at Leviticus. And we have that there. We're going to put in 23:44. 23:44. All right. So we had it there. Now we just read Leviticus 23:44, and I'm going to read it again just to make sure we have it. Okay, so 23:44, it says, and Moses declared. So Moses declared what? Moses promised unto the children of Israel the feast of the Lord. So this where we know how this is coming off as a promise. This is a promise that was going on. Now we're going to also, we want to sit here and we want to put in Deuteronomy. We're going to put in two of the areas of Deuteronomy. We're going to put in 4:13, and we're going to put in 26 and 18. So we have those two running there. So let's go, and we want to make sure we're putting in the right ones to where we don't want to mix it up. Now, people who do not have either one, and they actually are in the school over at KJBU, it's one thing you can do, because this here, I'm gonna put this over. It's gonna be over in Roman, and what I'm gonna be doing, this document here that I'm completing to where you can finish it out, because we got a lot of stuff to put in. But as you can finish it out, you can actually be able to get this document there automatically. Probably after 2 hours after the class is over, it'll be over there available for you. But we got to look at this Deuteronomy 4:13. It says he declared the covenant unto his covenant. So he promised unto his covenant, which he commanded you to perform. So we had to perform the commandments, even the 10 commandments. So these are things we know. And then it says, and he wrote them on 2 tablets of stone. It's telling you plain as day what they are. It's telling you everything so far. So these are things we have to see, we have to understand and get through. I'm talking about just get through our heads every time. So what else we know was based on that promise? What else do we know was based on that promise? We got to put in more. We have Psalms. We got to go to Psalms. Go up a little more. And in the Psalms, we're going to put in a few. We got to put in Psalms 88 and 11. We have to put in 119, 25 through 27. Through 27. And I don't know if I get in the other one. So if not, I don't think I get the other one in there. I really don't think so. I'm going to try. I'm going to see what I can do. Actually 119. Actually, I can do this. 125. And actually, I did that wrong. I'm sorry. 119, 10 through 13. That's why I was 10 through 13. That's why I was saying I can't get all that in there, because I have to actually do this again because it's 25 through 27. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, even though I don't normally do it, but just to where we can get the understanding. Then we're going to put in the other one. We're going to put in 119, 119, and then we're going to look at 25 through 27. So now we know this. We know we have all this there, and we're going to go back and we got to read those Psalms to make sure we got the right ones. And that's our way of double checking. That's the way you double check yourself to make sure, because if you just put them there, then we go back and look at it, and then we might have quoted the wrong verse. We might have quoted the right verse, but wrote the wrong verse down. So that's why we got to go back and we check everything. You check everything and you do the homework. So Psalms 88 verse 11, it says, and shall thy loving kindness be promised in the grave? Because that's one I actually didn't use, but we had to add it in there because this is one that I had. And can it be promised in the grave, or thy faithfulness in destruction? He's telling you, and he declared it from the grave, or thy faithfulness in destruction. So he's letting you know he didn't declare it there. Shall that love and kindness be declared in the grave? Because he said it with the question mark. Should it be declared there? Should it be promised in the grave? No, it's promised to you here, but it depends on what you're going to do. He makes himself, I'm talking about, he makes himself crystal clear all the time. But we have people who have taught it to where it twisted it to where it just convolutes everything. Now we got to check Psalms 119, 10 through 13. It says, with my whole heart have I sought thee. O let me not wander from thy commandments. Thy word have I hid in my heart, that I might not sin against thee. Blessed art thou, O Lord, teach me thy statute. With my lips have I declared, have I promised all the judgments with thy mouth. So we know there's another one that we was using. And then we're going to go down to 25 to 27 to make sure these was it. And it says, delete, that's 25 is start. My soul cleaveth unto the dust. Quicken me according to thy word. Why? Because there was a promise there. I have promised my ways, and thou hearest me, teach me thy statutes. So we have that one too. And then it says, make me understand the way of thy precepts, so shall I talk of thy wondrous works. So that's all the way to 27. So we need those there. So you see that there, you'll see those there. So if you're writing, you put those there, and then when you want to put this here, so what we're going to do is now I'm going to change some of this up here. Actually, I got to take this watch off. This watch is going to drive me crazy because I hit stuff and it drives me crazy. So I'm going to take my watch off for temporary. And what I want to do, I want to change this and declared. So I can sit right here. So we know here, is based on a promise. The is his covenant and the law. So this is what we know. So we know that's there, and we know that's the part of it what's going on. So it's based on this promise, and the promise is based on his covenant and the law. So we know that, and when you go there, you'll pull that there and you will see it. And you'll see it automatically. So we know this is what Paul is clearly talking about. So when we see this right here, we can go right here, and let me go there, and we're going to put that verse there just to make sure it won't be no mistakes anywhere. So let me go to Romans 1:1, and we want to put that there because I want to make sure that's there to where when you go later, you don't want to have no problem. So we know Paul was an apostle of Christ. And now when you're getting down to it, we know that it's verse 4. So we want this here. This promise was based on, we'll do this here to where it won't mix up. And this is why I said we gotta do this, because what we're doing now, we hunting down things. So this is the way I hunt things down. So we're gonna do Romans 1 through 4. We're gonna say 1 through 4. The promise. So we know this is the promise. And we know, so now when you sit there and see that there, now you know this promise is actually tied to declared, because we also had this down here. Declared is based on a promise. So he made known that promise to you. And now if you want to be a little bit more knowing in what you were doing, same thing. I didn't put it in here, but for some of us, so we can remember and not forget, we can even do this. So, and then we know in Exodus 19, verse 5 and 8. So we know here we'll do it this way. This way we'll do it to where we won't have no issues. Let's do it this way. Most High God promised that we will be his treasure. His treasure. Actually, let me take out that capital T. We will be his treasure. If we obey his voice. So we have that there. So you don't have to put it up there, but some people might want to put it up there, but you want to put it down here for the declared part. Now, 2, and this is why I was saying I was doing it this way. Exodus 19, verse 8. Now, don't say you, but say our forefathers agreed to the promise. They agreed to the promise. So once they agreed to that promise there, that's why we inherited. So what they did, and then it passed down and it passes on. So once they do it, and then we want part of that promise, and it's saying you have to do something to do it, that's what happens. And some of the ways you can look at it is to where even the best silhouette picture, many of us have probably seen Brewster's Millions with Richard Pryor. Many people might have seen that. And that's the best way kind of to describe that. Now, this man have left him, I think $100 million, some crazy number of money, the amount of money. Left him about, we'll just say $100 million. So he was going to inherit it because he was the only one. He was like the last living relative, something to that effect. But then he said, if he wanted to take the wimp clause, he'd get $1 million and he can move on. But if he wants the full inheritance, it was something is the key. It was something he had to do. And it was basically, I think he had to spend $30 million in 30 days, something crazy. But you see, he had to do something to achieve the bigger goal. So it's the same thing here. If we want that promise, what our forefathers have agreed with the Most High, then we ourselves have to do the same thing. It's something that we have to do to achieve it. It's not just based on, I believe this is my Heavenly Father and I can roll on down the street and do whatever I want to do. That makes no sense. That's what's going on here. So we have this here and we understand what that promise is. So we need to also understand what that promise also looks like in many other ways. So what we're going to do, we're going to go over and we're going to see a little bit more. So what I want to do is we're going to go over to see, I'm trying to see what the promise looked like. Yeah, see, I knew I did that. So what we're going to do is see what this promise looked like. So we're going to see an example is what I'm doing. So the first one we're going to do Genesis, because we want to see an example. So we're going to do Genesis 18 in verse 10. And then we're going to add to that. We're going to add to it because we got to see an example, and we're going to put example there. So we're not going to be able to use that whole part to put the other verses in there. So that's what we're going to do. So let's look at an example of a promise, because we want to know. So when somebody say, well, that's declared, but what, so what is a promise? So we got to look at the example of the promise. So we got to see that. So we're going to go to Genesis chapter 10, chapter 18, verse 10. And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life. And lo, Sarah, thy wife, shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door, which was behind him. So we see he already said, I will certainly. So I will certainly is a promise. Saying the same thing. He's saying the same thing. So we have to keep that there. So he's giving you here, and we're going to see an example. An example of what? We've seen an example of a promise. And we're going to see how that plays out. So we're going to look at the example. So we got to go through another part. Now let's go through another part. We're going to sit there and see this same example. Let's go to Genesis. We're going to look at Genesis. We're going to go to 17. And we seeing something that's really weird, but going back, but don't worry, it's going to work itself out. We're going to go to 17. We're going to go through 19 through 21. So let's go there and we're going to look at it and we're going to understand it. Because one thing most people mess up is where people think Sarah and Abraham didn't know. And they clearly knew, but they took it upon themselves. This is where people try to rush into things. And the Most High works on his time. But Sarah and Abraham already knew when he was going to return. They knew this, and we're going to find that out also. So let's go to Genesis chapter 17. Now watch what's going to happen. Chapter 17, verse 19 through 21. It says, and God said, Sarah thy wife shall bear a son indeed. So she's saying he promised. He's promising this. This is going to happen. And thou shalt call his name Isaac. So now, not only is she going to have a son, and this is what you're going to call this son. And I will establish my covenant. Then he's going to establish his covenant with what? With him. So that's where he's going to put his covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. So that covenant going to go with him, and then it's going to also proceed to him. Now, watch what's starting to go on here. And as for Ishmael, I have heard thee. So Ishmael, he heard thee. But what was Ishmael based on? Ishmael was based on fleshly. He was doing something fleshly. He wasn't doing based on a promise on what he said. Behold, I have blessed him. I will make him fruitful and multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. So he's telling, I'm going to make him a great nation because of who he is. However, I didn't promise him. I didn't promise you him because you did that on your own. You and Sarah did that, not what I said. But watch this. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this time in the next year. You see that? He's telling them. So they knew this. They knew when he said, okay, well, he's going to come and this is what he's going to do. So they knew this was going to go down. And it's telling you right there. So did Abraham and Sarah know? Yeah, they knew. But the first time when he brought that up, they sat there and they wanted to do it their own way. So when he came and he spoke to him, he said, okay, so when I come back, and I'm going to come back sometime around this next year, I'm going to come back and she's going to have a son. So he told her that right up front. So those are things that we do understand that he actually knew. Now, being told, what we see was that same repeat, but then the fulfillment we're going to see here. Actually, I don't want that. And we're going to see the fulfillment of the promise because I have to put fulfillment there. So that's why I have to go over here. So we're going to go to 21. We're going to go through 1 through 3. The fulfillment of that promise. We got to see this. So let's break this down and we're going to see. And we're going to go to Genesis 21, 1 through 3. And we're going to see this fulfillment of this promise. This what he declared. He declared all this stuff, and that's what happened. And it says, 21, 1 through 3, it says, and the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, as he promised. And the Lord did unto Sarah as he has spoken. You see how he's just repeating himself. And then it says, for Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age at the set time which God has spoken to him. And Abraham called his name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him. You see how they do a lot of stuff to make sure he concretes this in your head. Isaac. Telling you plain as day. So what goes on? We want to see what Paul was talking about. So now we're going to see this same thing. We're going to see this same thing, this fulfillment. Paul going to explain, and he explains it in 2 areas. And we got to look at this. We're going to go to Romans. We're going to go to Romans 9 and 9 through 11. And then we got to go somewhere else. But we're going to go there and we're going to see how this breaks down and why it's doing it in this manner. So in there, we're looking at this promise, and Paul breaks it down. Romans 9:9. And it says, for this is the word of promise. Paul telling you plain as day. Because why? In 7, he says he speaks to them who knows the law. And he said, this is the word of promise. At this time I will come. Same thing he was telling, same thing. You see how Yahweh was speaking to Abraham. Now you see Paul telling you, you can tell Paul read the book. But Paul putting his own spin, his own language, and just telling you the same thing the Most High said. He said, at this time I will come. So he's saying, like, next year, this time I'm gonna come. That's all he's saying. At this time next year, I'm gonna be here. And Sarah should have a son. That's all he said. So now we see where Paul actually got this from. So now we don't have to think, well, why Paul saying it in that way. Now you know exactly where Paul pulled this from. And then it says, not only this, when Rebekah had conceived, because he got into more, even by the one, our father Isaac. Now watch what happens here. For children not yet born, neither have done any good or evil, that the purpose of God according to election might stand, not for works, but him that calleth. So he's letting you know exactly what he's doing about this promise. Now we got the main thing, and we're going to see the main part on what it's talking about, because many say, as I said, many say, well, long as we from the seed of Abraham, I'm good. Many says that because why? Yeah, many going to tell you, even you're going to have many Islam brothers going to sit there and tell you the same thing. And people say, well, why you call them Islam brothers? They from Abraham. That's your brother. But so I don't know, part people have a problem with it. But you have these Islam brothers out there, and we have to understand what they are. We have to understand who they are. We gotta sit there and clearly understand what Paul is saying in the full understanding on what's being said. Meaning what? Let's look at it. So this is how it breaks down. So now we also have to look at, actually, yeah, I want to do it this way because I need to do it this way because actually we got to work back. We're gonna go through 6 through 8. Why? Because you're seeing this fulfillment, but we're gonna go through 6 through 8, and we got to look at that. Now it says, not as though the word of God have taken none effect, because he promised it. It means this, hey, like he's just going, boom, you just doing it. No, but he's saying that. He said, for they are not all Israel, which are of. So you can be from Israel, but this still don't make you Israel. This is the problem with a lot of us have. This is why a lot of us sit there, we'll say things, we'll do things, and we'll say, well, what about this? I'm from Abraham, I'm Israel, so I'm part of the promise. Just because you Israel don't make you of Israel. Why? He goes on further. Neither because they are the seed of Abraham. Just because you from the seed of Abraham, they are all children, but in Isaac shall the seed be called. But in Isaac shall the seed be called. That's where it's going to be promised. In Isaac, that's where the promise is going to come from. In Isaac. Why? He's going to get ready to explain it. He said, that is, they which are the children of the flesh. So we know here still, Abraham. See, it's not just talking about other ones, but Abraham, flesh, Isaac, flesh. These are all flesh, but they promised them all. He promised all of them. So we have to understand what's going on. But watch, he said, that which are children of the flesh, these are not the children of God. That don't make them children of God. Now they are, but just because he's not talking particularly or focusing on Abraham and Isaac, saying that these are not my children, these are not my servants. He's not saying that. He's saying just because you from these lineage doesn't make you, me, a child of God. That's what he's saying. Because just because you Israel don't make you that. Just because you from that lineage. He says, but the children of the promise are counted for the seed. So what he's saying in his fullness of everything, what Paul is making clear is this. Just because you're from that lineage and you're not doing according to what was promised in Exodus 19:5 and 8, that don't make you a child of God. If you don't do them, don't make you think you're part of this promise. This is what Paul is fully telling you. And most people will sit there and say, well, I'm Hebrew, or I'm Israel, and I can go do these things over here that I want to do, and I can do whatever I want because I'm Israel. But if you're Israel and you're not doing according to the promise that you promised, that's under that covenant that he made, how did that make you a child of God? That don't. It's according to the promise. The lineage it gets your foot in the door. But doing the promises gets you in. So this is the part that we need to look at. We need to fully understand that condition. We need to understand that promise. And that promise is based on what? Based on something else. It's based on something else. And same thing now, we're going to see here what we want to do. And actually, let me use this one. We're going to use this one. And we want to just make sure we have some stuff clear. We want to make sure we have some stuff clear in an understanding. So we have to do the promise. Actually, I wonder, can I copy and paste this to help me not do so much typing? So the promise is based on obedience. That's what we know. We clearly know this. It's based on obedience. How do we know? Let's look at one. We already have them up there. We don't have to put it up there because we already have it down here. You already see that declared. So we know one is the promise is based on, we already know, Exodus. Oh shoot, let me do this because I do know. Based on Exodus 19, verse 5. This promise is based on Exodus 19, verse 5. We know that one. Now, we also know it has another area which we have to put in there. This promise of obedience, we have to do something. So how do we know this? Based on the full understanding on what Paul's saying, because we have to understand what Paul was talking about with this full understanding on everything he was saying. So we're going to look at another piece of scripture and understand. So I want everybody to go to Jeremiah chapter 7, verse 23. Jeremiah chapter 7, verse 23. I want you to go there. And we got to look at this. We want to look at it to where we can understand everything that he's talking about. So 7:23, and it says, "But this thing this thing command I them." Who's based under the promise. These are the ones who's based under the promise, going under that obedience. This is who he's talking to. He said, "Obey my voice." Didn't he just say this in Exodus 19:5? He made himself clear right there. He said, "I will be your God." Who? The ones on 19:5. "And ye should be my people." Who? The ones who answered him in 19:8. And he says, "And ye should be my people and walk all the ways that I have commanded you, that it may be well with you." So we know right here, this is based on the promise in 19:5. And in Jeremiah 7:23. So we know that. So if he's telling you right here, God, I'm gonna be your God. I'm gonna be your God. So most people don't know what God actually is saying, and this is why I try to really push people to understand what he's saying when he does it. And now with the affiliations, we cannot put that there because what we have is people are trying to twist it around. But same thing, I will declare and make it known to you what he actually is saying. But then people will try to misplace it in other ways, and then they'll misunderstand what it was saying. So that's why I didn't put it there. But we're going to find out what certain things mean. So God means what? God means what? See, because he's telling you, you have to obey him. You have to follow him. So what do that mean? What do that mean in this full understanding? And most people will sit there and say, well, it means he's this, he's that. No, he mean one clear thing. He's mean one clear thing. Let me put this, let me get this part. And he tell you, that's what that means. I don't know why it's showing that, but that's all he's saying. That's why he says that in Jeremiah. So let's go back and let's go back and look at Jeremiah, and we're gonna get some understanding, because now it should make a lot of things click for you to where you can get the understanding on what he's saying. So it says, But this thing I command them, saying, obey my voice, and I will be your shepherd. That's all he was saying. And you will be my people and walk all the ways that I have commanded you. Why? Because he makes clear right here when we go here. Psalms 23. He clears that. He makes himself perfectly clear. Now let's look at this. And we're going to see what it says. It says in Psalms 23, Psalm everybody uses. It says the Lord. They ain't saying God, because he's the shepherd. So it's saying the Lord, same thing, is my shepherd. That's why he's saying that. So he's using the shepherd. So it's saying the Lord is my God. It's saying the same thing. No different. That's why he's not putting it there. That's why that structure is not there. And it says, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pasture. Why? Because you following him. He layeth me down beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness. Ooh, you obey his voice. In the path of righteousness for his name's sake. He calls you Israel. And though I walk through the valley of death, which we are right here, right now, I will fear no evil, but thou art with me. He's always with us, so there's no reason to fear anyone else, but you fear him who can destroy the soul and the body. Thou prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. He's preparing your body right now. And thou anointed my head with oil, and the cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. So the goodness and mercy, so as we sit there and trip, we get up and we learn and we put this away and we continually walk forward. Technically all he's saying. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That's what it says. Psalms 23. So people will sit there and they can tell you anything otherwise, but he's telling you exactly what he's talking about. And it's all scriptures tied together. So with that being said, do we have any questions on this part? Actually, let me zoom this out. Let me zoom that out some. And actually, I don't know why that's showing there. Why is this? What I'm trying to do is move this. I don't know why it's doing this. I don't want this. I don't want that part, but let me see. Nope, that's still there. I'm trying to get rid of this. Well, I'll leave it there for right now. But however, let's see. Do we have any questions so far? Any questions so far on what was being said and make sure everybody understand what was being talked about and getting the understanding. And no questions, but I wish I could have been able to get what? No question, but I wish I could have been able to get what? I don't know. No, sir. Yeah, I want to understand what Sister Brenda, she just like cut off. I don't know what she's saying. So trying to get that answered. And once I get that, then we probably can move on forward. But I'm trying to see what she was saying, because she was saying, and the question was going to get here. You lost me. You talking about here to this class, or are you talking about something else? I'm just trying to understand before I move forward. Just trying to understand what you're talking about. That's all. So I think you might have to get here. I'm not to get here to this class. I'm not sure if that's what you're saying. So if not, yes, there more we could. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. I just want to understand what you were saying. That's literally all I was trying to do. So, okay. So that's cool. So man-made device, the point. Yeah. Yeah. So to get here. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, and then it is so plain, thanks. And it's safe to ask, is there more we can precept? Oh, it's well to let you know this. We going through Romans, and I don't know if you just got here, but going through Romans, and what we're doing, we're going through the book of Romans because we're going to go entirely through the book. But what we're trying to do, and what I'm showing them, is going through the mindset of Paul on how Paul does. So long as we can go through the mindset of Paul, we can understand what Paul is talking about. And then this won't only help you here, but this helps you in other places, because once you start understanding how Paul works, you're going to understand why Paul precepts. And Paul is precepting the entire time. But Paul speaks very, very plain, but we just want to know what Paul is saying. So this is where, so now when you see, just based on from verse 1 through 4 in chapter 1, you see, even though we have precepts on other pages of Paul, on what he was saying all the time, we still wasn't pulling these, but we want to understand the overall picture on what Paul was saying. And that's what you're going to, most likely some of us going to go out. We're going to teach other people that. I do have an elder that actually goes out to people and he teaches people that. And we have other people who might want to, do like small classes, because I know a lot of people are buying the PDF version, which they can print out, and you're going to be teaching people this. So we got to make sure we're giving everything out correctly. We're not sitting here trying to pump you to some silliness. And if you notice, we haven't used not one commentary, not one dictionary whatsoever. We pulled everything we need to pull right from scripture. That's what we do here. So I'm good. We don't have no questions anywhere. So with that, we're going to move forward. So now we got to understand what conditions and everything else, what was going on, because what we want to understand, and people are going to get mad. I know some people going to get mad and see what's going on. And we have to put that in there anyway, because now I got to want it in there. But the main thing is, what we want to understand is one thing about the scriptures is what we want to make sure is in there. Now, we have this here, and what I want everybody to look at, and what we're going to, I don't know how to get rid of this. That don't do it. I don't know why this won't go away. I don't know why it won't go away. It's just like stuck. I don't get it. And see, now it's starting to irritate me because I got to do certain thing. But let's look at one more. Let's look at one more. Let's look at one more area, and we want to put this in there because I want you to have this, and we want to make sure that we have this there, and we want to zoom in. And actually, let me zoom in a little bit more. And zoom to. And let's go down to 200. Because I want to put one more there. And the fulfillment, actually, and I can't get that. So I'm going to have to put it over here. So what we want to do, we want to put in my uncle. I proclaim him my uncle. I proclaim him as my uncle. I'm going to put in second Idris. Have to put that there. Why? Because I believe that's my uncle. So we got to go to 4, 26, and 27. So we want to make sure that's there. And I want that there for a particular reason, which most people will find out later. So we got to go there. We want to read it, make sure that it goes with what we're trying to pump, and make sure we understand it. And it says in Idris 4, 26, and 27, it says, then he answered me and said, the more thou searcheth, who? Yahweh, the more thou marvel. That's kind of why I want it there, because I love me some Idris. But anyway, let's move forward. It says, and it's the more I marvel. the world has this fast to pass away and cannot comprehend the things that are declared or promised. It's telling you that to the righteous in the time to come. I'm talking, if this ain't serious, then I'm talking about Idris just tore it down. And then he said, for this world is full of unrighteousness and infirmities. So, and that's what he's saying. So this world, this wilderness is full of unrighteousness and infirmities. But we cannot, for most of it cannot comprehend the things that is declared unto us that we see in scripture. So those are things we have to look at. Now, we have to look at those conditions because he's telling you something. And the reason why I want to put that there, we got to look at the conditions on what he's talking about. And actually, I'm trying to see why they're doing that. And we want to see the conditions and we want to look at this as its full entirety. And why is this doing that? And I do not want that one there. One second. I have one problem here. And I don't even know why that one is doing that. Let me go to second address. Let me do this real quick because my system is want to do something else. So second address, chapter 7, and then we're going to go down. And I don't know why it's doing that, but for some reason it was doing it. So we want to look at conditions. So we have to look at certain things here. So with this, we have to understand what, or who, where, why, when, or how. We have to look at these and understand what these are. So what I'm gonna do here to where we're gonna figure that out, let me put this there and then we'll find this out. I'll do it that way. Let's go here and read 2 Esdras chapter 7. And we're gonna read down a little ways to understand what's going on. But then we want to understand what Paul is talking about and where he's pulling this from, because he's pulling this hardcore from Esdras, because he's going to tell you about something. And Paul going to explain it as well as Esdras going to make it clear. So we're going to go to 2 Esdras chapter 7, verse 47. We're going to go to verse 47. We're going to look at this real close. We're going to look at it real close. And we're going to look at something. We're going to look at something there and we're going to get an understanding. So we're going to go down, we're going to go to verse 47 in 2 Esdras chapter 7. And we're going to start at verse 47 and I'm going to go down to 61. That's why I said we got to go down a little ways to understand what Paul is pulling. It says, for what profit is it for a man now in the present time to live in heaviness and after death to look for punishment? It's a question mark. He's asking the question. O thou Adam, what hast thou done? For though it was thou that sinned, thou art not fallen alone. No, we part of it. We all have fallen, but we all come of thee, and we all fall just like we do. And it says, for what profit is it unto us if there be promise that declare something, us in immortal time? Same thing what we've been just talking about. And if you notice why, as we're going, some people might be thinking like, man, I'll tell you what, he's kind of talking like Paul. Yeah, this is where Paul got a lot of his stuff from. Paul pulled a lot of his language and twisted around his way. And he pulled a lot of stuff from here. And it says, whereas we have done the works that bring death. This is what we do. Now, verse 50, he says, and that there is promise, again, is an everlasting hope, whereas ourselves being most wicked are made vain. Making this clear. And that there are laid up for us dwellings of health and safety, whereas we live wickedly. I'm talking about he's asking these questions, but it's so clear. But watch what he says: in that the glory of the Most High is kept to defend them, which had laid up a weary life. So this weary life, what is he saying there? This weary life is he's getting into. Actually, I'll tell you what. Let me minimize this. Let me change something. Here, because we should all be reading from the same thing. And let me put the scripture up. Better yet, that's better than what I can do. Put the scripture up to where you can see it. So I do apologize because I actually put this up there for you guys to be reading it and didn't do it. So we got to go here. And I just want to get down there to it. And let me get this. I'm trying to get there where we was right here. So let me pull this up now. I was just trying to make sure we're at the right location. So, and then this can be all well with us all. So this is what I prefer to do and make sure we all can be sharing the same thing. So I do apologize because I actually set this up to do pretty much this. And this is why shoots. Okay, 1 second. Okay, we got it. All right, so now so we're good. So now let's go through and we're going to look at this. So he says, and we're going to go right back to 52 to look at what he was saying here. I need to move this one out the way. And now he's telling you 52, it says, and that the glory of the Most High is kept to defend them that have led a weary life. So what is a weary life? What is this weary life? It's a chasing life. It's life that you done went through. You went through a lot of different things. And then whereas we have walked in the most wicked ways of all, and that there should be showed a paradise whose fruit endureth forever, wherein is security and medicine, since we shall not enter into it. For we have walked in unpleasant places. We're doing that right now. And we have faced them which have used abstinence shall shine above the stars, which as our faces shall be blacker than darkness. For while we live and commit iniquity and we commit sin, we consider not we should begin to suffer after death. Then answer me, this is the condition of the battle. This is the condition of the battle. Meaning what? We have to go through this. This is without being said. This is what most people don't even believe that's in the Bible, but it's there. This is the condition of the battle. We have to, it's like you preparing a fighter for a fight. And you have to put in that work to get through it. And he's telling you the same thing. So if you was laid up, we have to go through this fight. You have no choice. It's not where you're going to lay back. You're going to kick back and, okay, well, I don't have to do anything. Jesus paid it all. I don't have to do nothing. It's not going to work. It's not going to work because he's telling you what's going to happen. Well, watch this. Which man is born upon the earth shall fight? Which man that is born upon the earth shall fight? Are you going to do it? or are you not? Which one are you? Are you not going to do this? See, these are things all Paul was alluding to. That was the power was given to Yahushua. Now, that one that they teach about that Jesus, where you don't have to do nothing, okay, he's talking about a whole nother ball game. We don't need to deal with him. We need to talk about Yahushua in this battle that he had to fight. And we have to get in, we have to put on our gloves and get in the ring, and we have to put up a fight. But watch this. That if he be overcome, he shall suffer as thou hast said. And we suffer. Some suffer more than others. But that's the fight that you have. And he goes on more. But if he get the victory, he shall receive the thing that I said. He's clear. Clear. Watch this. For this is the life whereas Moses spake unto the people while he lived, saying, choose life that thou mayest live it. The same as you will fight for your body of life right now, you should have that same fight for that life that comes after. You use this life to fight for that life. Meaning what? You give up this life to fight for that life. But let's move on. Nevertheless, that believe not him, nor yet the prophets after him, because they're not going to believe. Prophets after him, they can come. Prophets can come, say many different things. Care less. They're not going to believe them. They don't see it. They don't see these things, but then people will sit there and you have people proclaiming prophets and they don't do nothing in the Bible. They proclaim their prophets and can't precept their way out of a dang crackerjack box. But they say they're a prophet. And then as soon as you challenge it, then they'll back away. A prophet should be able to precept his Bible with no issues. These are things that where people will sit there and they'll proclaim something and then they can't do what's actually is required on that. And then they still going to hold on to it. And this is why people want to hold these people who so-called proclaiming prophets, and they claim they're apostles and they claim they're bishops, and bishops ain't even a high stature on what most people think they are. And bishops not even what he gave you as a gift when you go look at Ephesians 4:11. However, but you got people who call themselves bishops, which is silly within itself. But the thing they understand when they want to call themselves apostles, and they're not telling you what's concerning God is the issue. But you have some that will come and tell you what is truth, and you won't even believe them. Nor me, which has spoken unto them. But he says, watch this. There should not be such heaviness in their destruction, as shall be joy over them that are persuaded to salvation. This is what's being said. So we have to understand what's going on. We have to look at the scriptures in its full entirety on what actually happened. So we have to sit there and look. How did Paul put all this together? How did he get all this right here together? Because it's a condition that you have to be in. You have to condition your mind in this. So what we're going to do, we're going to switch this back over, and I might need to blank this out. Yeah, don't need that one. Let me see. I need this here in, before I move over, in Barbara Collier. You had a question?
No, I don't, Elder. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, you had, okay.
I'm sorry, I hit my phone wrong.
Okay, that's okay. That is okay. Yeah. And let me get this back up before we go. So now what we want to do is make sure, do everybody anybody have any questions? We had Sister Collier. She just mistakenly hit it. But do we have any questions before we go anywhere? Anybody have any questions? Any questions, anyone? Yeah. And we have one here. Okay. And then I'm gonna take that one question, but then we have one that Simpson. I had other precepts I wanted to make sure if I had it right. Thank you, help a lot. Okay, so yeah, but let's make one thing. Okay, your precepts in there, you can actually put them in the other classes, but we're not here to where you trying to sit there to just do a bunch of stuff. Oh, I want to see, do I have this right? Do I have that right? So you'll follow the precepts that you see here, and then you'll see other precepts that follow to make sure. That's why you're going to be using the preceptual paper. And then if you have a question about it, you can actually post it over at the KJBU side, and then I can actually look at it, or one of my other teachers will look at it, and we can let you know from there. But I do have Angela. Angela, you had a question?
Hi, Elder.
Hey, how you doing? Shalom.
I'm good. Shalom. My question was, because I was working on a homework. I don't know if you're ready to attend to those questions yet or not. But with number 7, Romans 1:22, I think I had, and I don't know, trying to work on precept in there to find the right precepts to go with that scripture. I had Isaiah 45:17, but I wasn't sure if that was right. And then when I was struggling kind of with that scripture, so I looked at the answer and I couldn't quite get understanding. So I was wondering if I could get some help with it.
Yeah. So once we get down to 121 area, and then you'll see all what we're doing. So you kind of went way ahead of what we're doing. So
Okay.
So as soon as we get to down by 121, then what you do, notify me again to where I won't forget, and then we'll go through what you just said, where you want to make sure the precepts on what you pull, you want to make sure that you did it correctly.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. So anyone else, and then we don't see nobody had no questions outside of here. So what we want to look at is we want to look at conditions. So the main thing is, what is conditions? We need to see conditions. So we need to see, well, we can just say condition. What? A condition. And we know the condition, we know that's going to go to second degrees. And if you notice, we still haven't did other things. But what we do, we separate these things into what the issues are. So these are conditions. So we're going to do second degrees, and we're going to do 7, 47 through 61. And we know that is a condition. So once we start understanding some of these things and what the conditions are, and we want to make sure that we understand exactly what is happening. So how do we understand what this all means? Let's look at a piece of scripture and understand something. We're going to go back to second degrees. We're going back to second degrees. And we're going to look at chapter 7, but we want to look at verse 43. We're going to look at verse 43. And actually, let me do I have this public size? Let me see. I'm starting to get myself mixed up. Let me pull this up. And there we go. Let's go down to verse 43. We're going to read verse 43 and verse 44 and see why this is saying, why I'm saying it's a condition. It says, but the day of doom shall be the end of this time, and the beginning of immortality for to come, wherein corruption is past. Intemperance is at an end, infidelity is cut off, righteousness is grown, and truth is sprung up. So you talking about going from one condition to another. It's changing. It's constantly changing over. So these are what's going on. So right now within us, we have to understand this condition is changing. And how we're going to find out some other ones, we got to look at there to where I wonder, I'm going to see if I can do this. I'm going to see if I can do it. Let me see. If I can do this, actually, it works. Okay, it works. Okay, so it was able to work. So that works out. So now, so that works out. Okay, so now we know that condition, and that was the intent. So we need to find out some other things on this condition. We need to understand what those conditions are. So we're going to look at something and see what is against us, what is not against us, what is helping us, what is not helping us. We need to understand these conditions and how thing is done, how everything is done. So let's find out some of the conditions. We're going to look at one of the other things, because we got to find out what is actually going to be going in some ways, and we got to see what this is. So we're going to go to Deuteronomy. And this is going to drive me crazy, you guys. I got to figure out how to get rid of this thing. And because this is actually going to drive me crazy. But Deuteronomy 30 and 19, we got to look at this. We got to look at this condition. And it says, I called heaven and earth to record. He called heaven and earth to record. So, and he's calling it to record because this is actually being recorded. And then this day against you, meaning it's going to be recording it, good or bad, doesn't matter. That I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. These are the conditions that's going to be happening. Therefore, choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live. So we understand what the conditions are, because the conditions is actually told what's going to be happening in Deuteronomy 27, 28, and 29. We're going to find out many things that's going to happen. So we have to understand what those conditions are. So when Paul come on the scene, Paul is sitting there and he's trying to persuade the ones who know they're Jews and the ones who believe they're Greeks because of what King Antiochus or King Epiphanes has told them, that they all are one people. And they're not. They're clearly two different people, but Paul is trying to persuade them to understand they can receive grace and come back to the covenant. So we need to see this. So the conditions. So now we got to sit there and see, and I'm putting in a couple of parts on what we need to do. So meaning what? So what is here? Who, what, where, why, when, or how? What should be there? What should be there? If he's trying to persuade you, who? Or what? Or where? Or why? See, these are things that you have to answer within yourself to know and understand what is being on, what is going on, because Paul clearly have to fully persuade you, or the Bible has to persuade you into what need to be happening. So what should be there? What should be there? Who should be persuaded? Who shall be persuaded? We have to understand who is being persuaded here. And we got to understand what was going on. So we need to understand a few things if they're going to be persuaded to where they can come back to the covenant, because there are many people who are truly, truly lost. So when we look at the scriptures, let's go here and look at this some more. Let's go back and we're going to see some more here. So let's get some of this here clear. And we're going to go through Romans, and then we're going to come back and look at some things. So we want to understand what Paul is saying. Listen, Paul, a servant of Yahweh Shai the Messiah, called to be an apostle, separated to the gospel of Yahweh, which he had promised afford by his prophets in the Holy Scriptures. So this is concrete on paper. Concerning his son, Yahweh Shai the Messiah, our Lord, which made of the seed of David according to the flesh, and promised to be the Son of God with power according to the Spirit of holiness by the resurrection from the dead. This is what he made sure was clear. He did this, and actually to even prove that point there, you can actually use this. We're going to go to Revelations chapter 1:18. This is not something that you need to put in there, but you can put this there if you want to, just for your own personal reference. So it tells you right here from the resurrection from the dead, why it says in here. In Revelations 1:18, it says, I am he who that liveth and was dead. Telling you we're dead. And behold, I am alive forevermore. Amen. And have the keys of hell and death. And that's what he's talking about. So we know this is all true. And we can see this here that where it's been perfectly understood and where Paul is coming from. So Paul is using these things, talking about these different things that was going on, and then he was declared to be a certain thing. And then this, how we know he was going to be killed is where another part where Paul is pulled his information from. Now, what we want to understand as we continually move down, we want to understand how we find out the mind of Paul. We got to find out the mind of Paul. So when you get down here, we're going to understand a couple of things, and you're going to see a couple of things that's really weird. That this part we have to put in there, because these were some of the conditions that was put up. And let's look at this and understand what's happening. So we're going to start at Daniel chapter 9. Let me move that up. We had 9 and 24. And understand why Paul knew that he was going to be killed and resurrected. This is how Paul knew this, because Paul pulled it from a few different places. So in 9:24, it tells you 70 weeks are determined upon thy people in the holy city to finish the transgression and make an end of sin, to make reconciliation for iniquity. This is why Paul is coming to you. This is why Paul comes and he speaks to you, because he wants to make a reconciliation for sin. He wants you to come back to the covenant and stop doing sin. This is what Paul is saying. So we can do this. We can get reconciliation with the Most High. And he said, and to bring an everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and anoint the Most High. That's what he's saying. With the oil, which is us, being like crushed olives. Technically all he's saying. So it says, now therefore understand that from going forth in the commandments, people are going to tell you this, and this is part of the prophecy, which he tells you right there in Romans. he makes this clear. And to restore and build Jerusalem in the Messiah, the prince shall be 7 weeks. Now, the problem is most people and most Christians will tell you that his ministry was 3.5 years. That's the biggest bold-faced, unadulterated, low-down, dirty dog, crazy lie that they ever put out, because that's not true. His ministry was 70 weeks. It tells you this right here. Then what they also do, they like to transfer this and put it into years. A low down, another dirty dog, low down, sneaky, uncut, creepy theology that they do, and silly and stupid as they want to be. Again, why do I speaking in that way? Because this is what they do. And Precept shows you all the keys, but they choose not to do this. They choose to find ways to deceive you, which is really hateful to my people. And I hate it. Don't dislike it. I hate it. So the 70 weeks are determined. And with those 70 weeks is how long his ministry was. That was it. Why? Because it'll break a couple of rules if it was 3.5 years. This is the silliness that they teach. Because if it was 7.5 years, how old do a sheep have to be to sacrifice it unto the Most High? Of a year old. He tells you that. It's right there. And he said, when it's a year old, then you keep it in what? You keep it for 2 weeks, 14 days. Tells you that in the law. So if he offered a 3.5-year-old body, he's violating the law, not Yahushua, God himself. That shows you the silliness there. But it gets even more sillier as we go. However, then it says, and shall finish the tragedy and make an end of sin and reconciliation of iniquity and bring in everlasting righteousness and seal up the vision and prophecy and anoint the most holy. Verse 25. Now, therefore, understand. We need to understand something, that from going forth, the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem in the Messiah and Prince shall be 7 weeks. 62 weeks in the street shall build again the walls, the city, in the troublous times, because he already said this is going to happen. And after 62 weeks shall the Messiah be killed. That tells you he's going to be killed. This is how Paul knew this. It's nothing crazy. So it says, but not for himself. He didn't do it. He didn't get killed for himself. He was a schoolmaster. So, and the people and the prince shall come and shall destroy the city and sanctuary, and the end shall be with the flood. Doctrines. That's what it's going to be. And so these flood of doctrines that's going to come out, which tells you also in Revelation that Satan puts out his doctrine, which you can see many people are going to be attending those Satan churches today. So it goes on. In the end, then it says, in the end of war, desolations are determined, because this is the end on how he's settling it out to where they're going to run, to where they're going to believe. Now watch what happens. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. He's telling you clear. And in the midst of the week shall the sacrifice and oblation cease. So we know he died in the middle of the week. He died on Wednesday. But you have these silly preachers out there doing Good Friday, saying he died on Friday, got up on Sunday, and somehow they conjure up 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the earth. How they do it, I don't know. But just as I said, you got people who have bachelor's degrees, master degrees, PhDs. This is right there. And then they want to tell you, so they have worldly wisdom and understanding and not godly, because right here it's talking to you plain language, and they don't get it. But it's telling you right there. And it shall be a sacrifice and oblation to cease, an overspreading and abomination, and shall make desolate until the consummation, and the determined shall be poured upon the desolate. He's making it clear. Why? Paul is telling you this. Paul is making sure you know this. Why? Because when he gets here, we have to understand. That's why I say we have to understand the mind of Paul. We have to understand what Paul is saying. So if we don't understand what Paul is saying, we're going to always lose what Paul said. So we know that it's going to be determined because he's talking about where it's going to be the temple. He's talking about this stuff, and it's going to be determined. Why? Because this is the sanctuary. So we got to understand what that is actually talking about. So as we go back to Romans 1, he makes this clear. And declared to be the Son of God with power according to the Spirit of holiness by the resurrection from the dead, by whom we have received grace and apostleship, a message carrier, this is all it's saying, for obedience. We have to keep that. We have to keep that through there. We have to keep that there. For obedience to the faith among all nations for his name. For his name. Who are you called after? You called after him. You called Israel. For his name. So Paul is trying to persuade you. This is what he's doing. Paul is trying to persuade you into something. He's trying to get you to understand what is happening. So among whom are ye called of Yahweh the Messiah? Now he's telling you where they at. And all that be in Rome. All who be in Rome. All ones who don't believe who they are. Be in Rome. Called to be saints. You was called to be something. Grace to you from God our Father and Lord Yahweh the Messiah. So as he's going on and he's telling you about these things, he's trying to get you to understand who he came to and what he's trying to get you to do. He's trying to persuade you to do something good. But watch this. First thing he want to do, I thank my God. Now, we just found out what God was. It's a shepherd. So first, I thank my shepherd. It's clear as day. Yahweh shall tell you he's the good shepherd. So any other shepherd, any other person calling themselves a shepherd is what? If he says, I'm the good shepherd, he don't say, and I have other good shepherds. No, he don't say it. He said, I'm the good shepherd in the period, full stop. He's done. So if someone else calls themselves a shepherd, it's a problem. So this is part of the issues. But you have many of them going to call themselves shepherds. And it says, I thank my God through Yahweh the Messiah for you all, that your faith is spoken of through the whole world. So it's spoken throughout the whole world. For God is my witness, whom I serve with my spirit. You see how Paul, you see when you get real specific, how he says, it tells you, only way you can serve him is how? The spirit and truth. Paul telling you, I serve him with my spirit. In the gospel, in the message of his son. In the message of his son. Paul making it so clear. He got this laid out on carpet so clear, it's unreal. But people will tell you everything opposite of what's going on. So as we're getting down through here, we're just running through here as you see how we're doing this. And without ceasing, I make mention of you always in my prayers. I make mention of you always in my prayers, making requests if by any means now at length I might have proposed a prosperous journey by the will of God to come unto you. For as long as to see you, I may impart unto you some spiritual gifts. I'm telling you, he's making this clear as day. And at the end, you may be established. That is, that I may comfort you together with you in mutual faith, both for you and me. Mutual faith, that mutual belief, that mutual promise. Why? We want to see why. We want to see something. We want to see why Paul is making those statements. Then we got to put that in the preceptor. And I think that's the last input I'm gonna put in the preceptor, because some of this stuff we're gonna have to do to where it's just like I start your motor up, get you running, and then we need you to complete it. So we're gonna see something that happened. Let's go to Acts 18, verse 1. And we're gonna see Paul talking the same thing. Paul ain't never changed his language, but people will tell you Paul done got rid of things and Paul haven't did anything. So let's go to Acts. And did I get that one right? And no, it didn't get that right. 18. Okay. Chapter 18 in Acts. We're looking at 18 verse 1, and we're looking at some of the conditions and everything that was going on and how we was understanding what Paul was doing. It says, after these things, Paul departed from Athens and came to Corinth and found a certain Jew named Aquila, born in Pontus, lately from Italy. What was he? He was a Jew. So what did this tell us? You stop and you think, you chew on that. See, most people try to, I gotta read. Don't stop doing that. We just got to stop doing that. We have to understand, one, he's telling you, we was everywhere. His name was Aquila. He was in Pontus. Lately come from Italy. He come from Italy. He was a Jew. He's telling you who these people are. But people will sit there and tell you all these different things. Oh, because they came from here, Cornelius was an Italian, and not understanding Paul only went to these people. But let's move forward. And his wife, Priscilla, because Claudius had commanded all the Jews to depart from Rome. He wanted all the Jews out. All y'all got to go. And it came unto them, and because he was the same craft, which he was a tent maker, he abode with them in wrought, and by their occupation, they were tent makers, which that's all they were saying he was. Technically, all that was happening. Now, what was going on? What was happening? Let's look at something. Let's drop down to verse 19. Let's drop down to chapter 19. We got to look at something there because we're getting information on Paul to understand what Paul was doing. We're going to look at 9 and 8. And this is what Paul was doing while he was down there. And he went into the synagogue and speak boldly for a space of 3 months, disputing, you see that right there? Disputing and persuading. That's what I've been saying the entire time, persuading. Actually, do we even have it there in the preceptor? It should be there in the preceptor, and if not, I am doing, no, it's there. He shall be persuaded. He's telling you clearly what he wants you to do here. This is what he was doing, persuading. But I was gonna say, if I didn't put that there, I need to put it there, but I already have it there because that was the main part of what was going on. So he was persuading the things concerning the kingdom of God. But when divers were hardened and believed not, but speak evil, that before the multitude he departed from them and separated the disciples, disputing daily in the schools of Tyrannus. So these are the problems that we were having. These are the issues that was going on. So Paul had to sit there and persuade people to get them to understand what was happening. So how do we know that this is all part of it? Let's look at this. We have to look and we have to constantly go through the same thing and understand what was happening. So as he's telling you, and as he's saying, he make mentions of us, and he want to depart some of these gifts in us, as he's telling you, imparting to you spiritual gift that may be established in the mutual faith. In the mutual faith. Why? Why is that? We're going to look at something. We're going to look at something. Let's go to same thing. We're doing a whole overview, still on verse 1, but you're going to see how Paul tracks up and tracks back. So we got to see that. So we're going to go to chapter 4 to see the overview, the entire Paul for chapter 1. So we're going to look at 4 and we're going to drop down to verse 20. Now, he tells you, moreover, the law entered that the offense might abound. But where sin abound, grace did much more abound. I don't know what to say there. You know, he's telling you exactly what's going on. And then he even goes on more, that as sin have reigned unto death, even so might grace reign through righteousness unto eternal life by Yahweh Shai the Messiah, our Lord. But we have to understand what was going on. Let's look at something. Let's go to, why is this not going? Well, let me do it this way. We'll do it this way, it'd be a lot simpler. Okay, so he staggered not at the promise of God through unbelief. Because we know God had that promise. And through unbelief, but was strong in faith, give glory to God. But in being fully persuaded that what he had promised, he was able also to perform. And therefore, and for that reason, it was imputed to him for righteousness. Now it was not written for his sakes alone. It was imputed to him, but for us also, to whom it shall be imputed if we believe on him that raised up Yahweh Shai the Messiah from the dead. So if we believe on him who raised him up, then we have that belief. But if you notice, they believe in a man, and now they made that man a God. Think about that. And it says, who delivered us, who delivered for our offenses and raised again for our justification. Therefore, for that reason, being justified by faith through that belief, and through that belief, you're going to be obedient to what he has said, and you're going to do it. You can be justified by faith, and we have peace with God. He has reconciled back with us through obedience, by whom we shall have access by faith into this grace wherein we stand and rejoice in the hope and glory of God. This is all he's saying. This is all he is saying. And not only so, but we glory in tribulations also. Why? He told you got to put up a fight. Didn't 2 Esdras just tell you that? We got to fight. Knowing that tribulation worketh patience, and patience experience, and experience hope. He makes all this clear. He makes all this clear. So what we need to do is go through this and make sure you input this inside that preceptor and run through it and put those in there and insert it to where you can have your preceptor, all your verses round out. Let me go in here, and I'm gonna put some of those in there just to show you. But then many of us, as most people know how to do, we need to make sure that we are doing this on us, because if I sit there and we do everything through here to get you started, that should do quite a bit. But we have some people who just want to look and just write down verses, and they just keep them and don't want to do anything. And you can't learn by just looking. You have to actually do something. So we're looking at Romans, and we want to put in Romans we're going to put in 420. And we want to go through 5:1. We want that one in there. And we want to put in another one, which I didn't read because we actually don't have quite the time. But we're going to go to go to Acts. I'm going to go there and I'm going to read it anyway. We're going to go to Acts. We're going to go to 26, 6 and 7. 6 and 7. Why do we need that verse? I'm going to show you why. I'm going to show you why we need that verse. That verse is actually very important. And why does this thing keep doing this? Why do it keep doing this? Okay, we want to go to Acts chapter 26. We're going to go to 6 and 7, and I'm going to show you why it need to be in there. So, let me start at the top so we can get the full context and this understanding, but we're only going to put down 6 and 7. It says, then King Agrippa said unto Paul, thou art permitted to speak for thyself. Then Paul stretched forth the hand and answered for himself. So we know Paul was in the room with King Agrippa. So this is the main focal point what we're trying to understand. Now it says, I think myself happy, King Agrippa. So now Paul is telling King Agrippa he think to be happy because now he's saying, because I shall answer for myself this day in touching in all things, wherefore I'm accused of the Jews. So Paul is telling you, hey, I'm happy the way I can speak to you about what went on, because I'm accused of all these other things, but you're not seeing what they sitting there lying on saying one thing, but I'm telling you what I actually did. He said, especially, and this is the key that I want you to understand. He said, especially because I know thee to be expert in all customs and questions which are among the Jews. Wherefore I beseech thee to hear me patiently. That's the key you want. He know King Agrippa is an expert in these questions in the custom of the Jews. He knows this. So that's the part that we need to understand. So since we know he's an expert, people will sit there and try to hold him another way. But we know one thing, King Agrippa is an expert in this. Now, he's an expert in this, but so he's an expert. So we're going to see, do King Agrippa catch Paul in a lie? Because he'd check him after we read the statement, he'd check him. Because if he had one belief and Paul have another belief, he can care less. He knows the custom and he knows what's going on. But if he says something incorrect, he can sit there and say, no, that's not true. That's not true, Paul. You making statements that is not true. And I'm going to correct that for you. So we're going to look at verse 6. He said, now, when Paul is speaking, now I stand and am judged for the hope of the promise made of God to our fathers. So we know what this was already talking about. He's talking about Exodus chapter 19, verse 5. He knows this. King Agrippa can care less. Paul is telling you for the hope it promised to who? To his fathers, not to King Agrippa's. King Agrippa can care less. It's the same as if you believe in another God and somebody else believe in another God, whatever that promise that God has, you can care less because you don't believe in that God no way. So you care less what he's offering. You got some people believe in resurrections or in reincarnations. They come back as different things. If you believe in that, then you technically believe in anything else. And you don't, but one thing I can say you don't believe in the God that's in this Bible. If you believe in reincarnation, you don't believe in this God. That's clear as day. If you believe that, in lucky rabbit's foots and all that kind of, are you really superstitious? Or you believe in zodiac signs, all this stuff, you don't believe in this God. You believe in another God. That's without question, because he is not the God of those of what those do. That's Satan that produced all that stuff. But watch what he says here. For the hope and promise made of God unto our fathers, unto which promise are 12 tribes, instantly serving God day and night, hope to come, for which hope's sake, King Agrippa, I am accused of the Jews. So Paul going around telling them that they can be raised from the dead like this man. Why? Because he tells you that in verse 8. Why should it be a thing incredible with you that God should raise the dead? Paul was going around teaching that, because you'll see down at the bottom, you'll see Paul actually gets more into it. And he's going around telling them this. So they think Paul is crazy. They think he's stupid. They think he's drunk. They think everything about Paul, because Festus even spitted it out. So this is the problem that was going on. And that's why when we sit here and we go to Romans 1, what was happening? Paul is sitting there telling you plain, declared to be the Son of God. How? By the resurrection from the dead. It's clear as day. So those are things we have to always look at. In the precepts is always going to be king. That's why you see this here, these two running side by side. So what we're going to do, we're going to cut this off here. And I want to make sure, do anyone else have any other questions or concerns concerning this, to where the way they can finish this out? Actually, I need to save this, but I'm also need to put this, I need to put this over with the universe. I'm gonna make a PNG file of it. And well, let me see. So yeah, so I have a PNG file of this that'll be waiting for the class that's over there, to where they can get a hold to it. And saving. Okay, so now we have that. So if we have any questions concerning this, and then you'll see how you go through, and you might use 2 or 3 of these. So, and if you notice, after each 4 verses, you'll see you have one of those in your workbook. So you might have to put those in there, and you put those pieces in there, and you see how to follow it. And then, because even though you have verses in your book, and actually I'm gonna go to it to show you what I'm talking about. Let me do it this way. I don't know why this is going this way, but let me do this. So even though that we're going to see here some of the things that we have shared, which you see right here, you see where we put information in here to understand what things mean. And you see the paper, then you see other things here. This does not mean you cannot use these, but the overall picture gives you other precepts. Understand? It's going to give you other precepts with the overall picture. So when you get this and you want to get this focal point, you want to sit here and you want to feel this with the focal point of this. So when you start doing this here, you won't have the issue of this This is going to get on my nerve. So you don't want to mess up, and you want to have this field like this with your information, which is all different things based on the focal point on what we're doing. So most people will sit there, won't be sitting there saying, man, you know, we really, or he don't really know the Bible, this and that. No, it just depends on how much time you're going to invest into the Most High to understand what he is saying. So when we use this, it was the same thing, like I'm right here at verse 17, it says, and therein is righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith. It is written that the just shall live by faith. Now you just got righteousness, and then you go down to the next one. But then with here, we need to see some of these key things on what I did. And if you look at here, you see right here, what do we focus in? Invisible and clearly seen. Invisible and clearly seen. So you can sit there and hear, and you can sit there, you can see manifest, because that was made known. Visible and clearly seen. It was made known. So the same thing is, so when you get here, you know what your focus should already be. That's why I was highlighting this stuff. We should already know what these focuses are. Same thing like it's burned in lust. We know, so the truth of God, who changed the truth of God into a lie. The truth of God, it turned into a lie. So if we want to look at the truth of God, now you're going to focus on that, but then you can also see what is the lie. Why? Because it's all through here. By all affections. He gave them up. Burned in lust. Recompense. Reprobate. These are all keys to where when you get here, now you know where to go pull, and you can put everything together on what Paul was saying. This is how you pull this. This is what you do. Do we have any questions before we go out? Any questions for anyone before we go out? And if you guys have, if anybody who had joined and want to go through this, you're more than welcome to where you can go over to KJBU, and you can see some of the resources, and you can actually get a Romans workbook to where you can purchase right from Lulu, to where you can actually join up. And then once you join up, you can go back, look at all the videos. We got all the lessons in order to where you can go through and catch all the way up and continue with us. But right now, do we have any questions from anyone on YouTube or in the class in Zoom? Do we have any questions? Any questions? And let me see. And we have none on one side. So we have Sister Brenda, and I do appreciate it because she's very voiceful. She lets me know when she knows, and I really love that because I know right up front where she's coming from, because she don't have no questions. And I almost take that as almost having law on that side because she's the only one mainly always speak. But now I do have that one. He said I had other precepts I wanted to make sure. Yeah, so we took care of that, and we have no questions on either side. And okay, well, thanks. And it was King of Agrippa, was King of an Israelite, expert in all custom and questions of the Jews, were customs in the land where he was in, trying to understand things. So let's look at the verse. Let's look at the verse because you got to put that in. You have to put that in your preceptor. So we need to look at that. So to make sure we're clear on this to where we get it. So let me put this up. Let me put it back up because I don't want you to slip out of that and have an issue later to where somebody will try to trip you up. Okay. So we know, then King Agrippa said unto Paul, thou art permitted to speak for thyself. Now we understand that part. Paul is able to speak for himself. Now, but he thanked myself King Agrippa, because I shall answer for myself the day before thee touching of all things which I'm accused of the Jews. So, and I know that to be expert in all customs in questions which are among the Jews. Now, you see right there, he's telling you which is among the Jews. Now, Agrippa is clearly telling you, King Agrippa is not a Jew, but he's an expert in what our customs are. Why? Let's go down. We're going to go down something, and we're going to start getting into it. Let's drop down and let's see something. He's saying, having therefore obtained help of God, I continued until this day, witnessing both to small and great, saying none other thing than those which the prophets and Moses did say should come. Because that's all Paul was ever talking about. That Christ should suffer, he talked about, and should be the first, should raise from the dead, and should show light unto the people and to the Gentiles, talking about the Hellenistic Greeks. That's all he's talking about. And then watch this. And as he thus spake for himself, Festus said with a loud voice, Paul, thou art beside thyself, much learning and made thee mad. So Festus is telling Paul, you crazy. You crazy. But watch, it gets on better. And he said unto him, I am not mad, most noble Festus, but I speak both forth words of truth and soberness. Hey, Festus, I'm good. I'm not drunk, nothing. I'm telling you straight up. Now watch this. This is the key where we know King Agrippa is not a Jew. It says, for the king knoweth these things. He know of them. Why? He's an expert. But watch this. So just because you're an expert don't make you one. But he's an expert in the customs and what's going on. Why? He was a king over them, so he took the time and the precautions to learn about what they're about. So that's why he's an expert in the customs concerning the Jews. And he says, and the king knoweth these things, before whom I speak freely, for I am persuaded at once of the things are hidden from him. For this thing was not done in the corner, because he didn't, as he said, it wasn't hidden from him. It was actually spoken of open, very openly. Where? In the area where he was king of the Jews. He was over the Jews. He was over that whole province. So if he's over that province, he know the customs on what was going on. Now, however, King Agrippa did believe what was going on, but King Agrippa couldn't let everybody know what was going on, which we're going to find out. It says, King Agrippa, believest thou the prophets? Say, now you checking King Agrippa. You believe them prophets? He said, I know thou believest. Then King Agrippa said unto Paul, Paul almost thou persuaded me to be a Christian, to be stupid, to be crazy. He's telling you. Paul, I'm talking about King Agrippa telling you straight out what he's about. But he gets on more. And then you also got to see what King Agrippa and them were. And we didn't have no other kings then. We was all at a lower stature at that point. So we can be like captains and different things in the army, but we wouldn't have a king status in these provinces at that time, technically what was going on. So now that's another reason how you also know. And then you have Paul said, I would to God, not only thou, but also hear me this day, but both almost were together and such as I am, except these bonds. So you see how he's saying this. So if you look at it, it says almost all together as such as I am, except in these bonds. And when he has thus spoken, the king rose up and the governor and Bernice, and they sat with them. When they were gone aside, they talked between themselves, saying, this man doeth nothing worthy of death or bonds or to be arrested for. Making that clear. So this is what was going on, and this is why when Peter tells them, if you if you call a Christian or call crazy, stupid, and all this stuff, don't worry about it. Just don't suffer as a thief or a murderer because you'll be killed. Technically, all he was saying. And I want to get to this one question. Okay, just we're good there. And I believe someone else just asked this. Yeah, we will be dealing with 122 most likely next week, because we just had a question on that one. That and I will touch on that next week. So we'll just do an overview on it on 122, because I don't believe I have the time. Let me see. I would try to, because Sister Angela, I believe she asked the same one. And it's saying let me see. I'm pressed, but let me see if we can push through this, because Sister Angela wanted to know, as well as we got a couple other people asking. In Romans 1:22, it says, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. So I'm trying to understand. Okay, now saying 122, they had to be in Jeremiah. Let's look at Jeremiah. You got Jeremiah 10:14. So we're going to go to Jeremiah 10:14 and we're going to look at it. Anytime you bring up a verse, always go there and make sure you want to see what you're talking about. In 10:14, every man is brutish in his knowledge. Every founder is confounded by grieving images, for his molten image is falsehood, and there is no breath in them. So when you're looking at that, based on the side of what you're saying, we're going to actually come out with two different ways. So would this be a good verse to use? Not technically good. Why? Because when you're using that verse there and you're putting them side by side, it's going to come out completely different on what you're saying. So when you're saying in Jeremiah 10:14, and let's look at 122. Let's go back to 122. In 122, it's saying professing themselves to be wise. And professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. And we use in Jeremiah 10:14, and it says, every man, Brutus in his knowledge. Every man, Brutus in his knowledge. So he's saying some people who was professing to be wise, but right here saying every man in his knowledge. So we have to watch out what, how that's being said. So that's why I wouldn't use that, because that's saying everybody. Even though you can come to the knowledge of God, you'll still be sitting there saying he's Brutus in his knowledge, which they can flip you on that. So you don't want to use that verse. In Jeremiah 4:4 is another one that you're using. Circumcising yourself to the Lord, take away the foreskin of your heart, ye men of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, lest my fury come forth like fire and burn that none can quench it because of the evil you're doing. Yeah, that's a verse you actually can use. Is because it's telling you, one, you need to circumcise your heart, but it's still, when you want to use it to try to make it make sense, this is still not going to be a good verse, because it's saying to circumcise something, so it's telling you that they don't want to adhere to something. So, and let's look at it this way. Let me pull it two ways to where you can understand what's happening. And we're gonna go to Romans 1. Let me see, I got Romans 1 there. So 122, it says professing to be wise, because themselves not there. So professing to be wise, they became fools. So we're gonna look at Jeremiah 4:4. So professing to be wise, they became fools. Circumcise yourselves to the Lord and take away that foreskin of your heart. But they was already professing. So if they professing to be wise, what do that professing mean? That's what we need to understand. What do that mean? And that's openly declaring, that's openly knowing something. So if they already know this and you can't tell them nothing about this, they already saying they have this knowledge. So they professing themselves to be wise. They became fools. Because they professing whatever theology they run in, they saying this is it. This is what we know. So in Jeremiah 4:4, circumcise yourselves to the Lord and take away the foreskin. So he's saying something different. Because you're hearing, but he's saying you need to circumcise your heart because your doctrine is flawed. This one professing to be wise saying it's not. This one saying his doctrine is right. He's not going to do this. So I would use this. Proverbs 12 and 15. Proverbs 12 and 15. What do we have? And it says, the way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but he that hearken unto counsel is wise. Yeah, that's a good verse to use. It's a very good verse to use. Because it's saying the way of a fool is right in his own eyes. But then you see the colon there, and then it's just going to give you more clarification. But that's why I'm saying, why? Because now we're going to see this again. Professing to be wise. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes. So you see how it's pairing itself and it's making it clear. Why? Because it's semicolon there, so I'm lifting that off and I'm putting it over here. So it's telling you, so professing to be wise, they became fools. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes. You see how I kind of just ran that? It's running the same thing. Actually, I do it this way. We're going to do it this way. I'm going to see if I can put this in this area to where you can see what I did. And to where it'll help you out a little bit more. Actually, and then I'm just going to take those out, and then and you're going to see this is all the way up to just those parts. And for some reason, it's not doing it all. But let me see. Let me see if it'll do it. Yeah, it did it. So the same as you see right there. Professing to be wise, they became fools. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes. You see, I got that from the right two areas. And this is for Jocelyn. So Jocelyn, so you see what I did there. So that's what actually happened. So you see how that's understanding coming. So now is no slippage of the language, because this is what Paul is saying all the time. He's saying this, even the Most High says the same thing. So hopefully that even shows you with that example there, it shows you exactly what happened. Because when it says this, let me put this up there. Let me put this up there. If I can put this up, we can get some understanding here. So let's get here. Let's get here. Isaiah chapter 28. Why? We're going to go right to verse 10. We have to. Okay. It says, for precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept. And you see it's a semicolon there. Not a colon, semicolon. So we have to understand what those mean. But what this actually does is a certain thing. This shows you where I can lift up this right here. And I can put that somewhere else. But it has to be followed within the structure of the precepts in the understanding of God. If it's not, I'm going to make it out of a lie. And then, because why? Because that lie it's going to show up. It'll show itself. So if it shows itself somewhere else, then I'm lying to you, because now I'm pushing my personal thought. And I can't do that. So he's saying line upon line, line upon line. So I can take things upon those lines and use those somewhere else. So I can't sit here and say, like, for simmering lips, I just take that part just right there. For simmering lips, I can't take that right there and go put it somewhere. because it's not the full thought of what God is pushing. Hopefully that gives you some explanation. Hopefully that gave you some explanation exactly on what I do. And if that helps you out, that should clarify a few things for you. So with that, but those verses I wouldn't put there unless it has to jive with the Most High. It has to go with his thought because it cannot be broken nowhere. If it's broken anywhere, then it's not the Bible got it wrong, it's you got it wrong. Good. So I see you got it. So you see what's going on. So that's why people sit there and had the issue. And where it'll protect you is where they saying the same thing. Meaning what? I'm gonna show you something. So the same thing is as you used Proverbs 4:4. Not Proverbs, you use Proverbs 12:15. And it says, so the same thing is some people might tell you with Romans 1:22 in Proverbs, they say, no, that's not correct. Now, I just told you, I say, now, if you come up with your own theology and you professing yourself to be wise about what you have taught, you actually became a fool. Because you write in your own personal eyes because you have your own personal understanding on how scripture is done. And they sit there and say, no, those two verses you just read don't make no sense. Now you say, okay, let's take our time. Because they say, because what you did, you taking scripture and you taking it out of pieces and you just making it fit your doctrine. So what you do is say, okay, let's go there. Let's see if it fit my doctrine. Now, what I just said about them, let's see, is it true? It's saying right there, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. So let's see, is that true? Now you go right back over, you professing to be wise. But it's a comma right there. Now I'm gonna go back over to 15. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes. I'm gonna go back. They became fools and finish it out. I say, now you tell me, where did I use my words? I didn't use my words. I used the Bible. And I can go all through the Bible and do this all day with them because there's no reason for us to use our own language. The Most High can speak for himself. So if he can speak for himself, you use what he has. He don't need men writing commentary trying to tell you what he said. He said, if you understand my precepts, you're going to get my understanding. And then you're going to hate all those lying ways. So hopefully that helps you out a little bit. So if any more questions, we can go through. But if not, we will go out. I am way past time. So do we have any questions? Any questions on this? And I think we are good. And we are pretty good. So I see we don't have any in the back, and I don't think we have any on the YouTube side. So we are sitting pretty good. So with that, we will be picking up on Wednesday. We'll be picking up on the weekly Israelite scripture reading. We're going to go through that. We have some serious stuff we got to go through there because we got the second part. We got to pick up on the names, and we're going to get a ton of information from there also. And with there, you're going to learn quite a bit. So with that, hopefully that I still don't see no one answering questions. So yeah, so we can go ahead and we can close out. So hopefully that you guys continue to do the studies, but make sure once you get into your weekly study, make sure you study that name because as I said, the second part going to be very serious. And we got to go through some things and we're going to find out some things that most of us really didn't even know about, and it's there. And why it is the way it is, why the names are there. So we got to figure that out. So with that, hopefully that you guys was richly blessed with the understanding that was given out so far. If you haven't had a chance, go over there to where you can pick up the books. You can go through this with us. And as we continue, We hope that you just richly be blessed in all knowledge and understanding, and as we continue in this same walk with the Most High. So with that, I bid to each and every one, shalom.